14th of the 9th, 1918, which makes me 91 and 6 months. And the family, actually, the antecedents go back to the longest continuous family of lighthouse keepers in Trinity House. They go back to 1730, where they started at St Margaret's, and there is the photograph of the old lighthouse. The Navy. I didn't know where Lowestoft was, and they came here at night time, and I was a Royal Navy Reserve seaman, and I went to what I now know was the Sparrow's Nest, and we dossed down on the floor for the night. I noticed that I was the only one with a hammock, although you couldn't sling it, but I laid on it. And the next morning, they called me what I now know as the Oval, and they said, all Royal Navy Reservists step one forward, because there were about 1,000 blokes there, all fishermen who'd just been called up. Some of them still in the fishing club. So I stepped forward, and then after a long preamble, I went down to the docks. We marched down, of course, and they put me through, can I splice, can I box the compass? I thought, what do they think, we're idiots or something? I've been at sea for several years. And so I said, of course I can. So anyway, the end of it was, they passed me for leading seaman, which was the equivalent to a sort of corporal nowadays. Yeah. Well, it still is. What happened, fortunately for me, I've always been saved many times by illness. And in this particular case, we were being attacked in a convoy at the Atlantic by U-boats. I never ever saw a U-boat the entire war. But we were being attacked, and I had appendicitis. And so I was taken down to sick bay, and when they got to the tail of the bank, the Clyde, they shoved me ashore, not because they wanted to get rid of me, but simply because they had to go in for orders and something. So they took the opportunity of, as it were, getting me off. Now, 2 days later, I was on the operating table, and it was that on the 28th of August, 1940, the ship was torpedoed, and a big loss of life, because it was an armed merchant cruiser. One of the most useless things living or going was armed merchant cruisers, which we never had no Aztecs. We did try depth charging a U-boat one, because you saw the torpedo track, but we never saw any U-boat. And so the captain steamed in and let go this depth charge, whereupon the engineers complained bitterly because there was leaks everywhere. You see, in those days, they were riveted ships, and it blew the rivets off. So we never did another depth charge. Well, that's a good question. I was on another immersion ship, and my father died. He owned the Woodbine. Well, he had a mortgage. And I had to tell you, I was on a little ship in Paris, and we used to run from Greenwich in London to Paris. A very good little job it was, actually. And sometimes I used to go as mate. But in this case, what happened, he died. My wife said, come home, so I came home. And after a couple of days I went to then it was called the Unemployment Exchange. Okay. And they said, what's going and so on. That's when I became a plumber, but that's another story. And I said to my wife, oh, they're advertising for the mechanic for the Lowestoft lifeboat. I said, well, that'd be interesting because I like boats, messing about with boats all my life. And so because of my dyslexia, she wrote it, I dictated it. And I think they call them CVs now. Anyway, I looked at it and then I looked at the pay, which was absolutely abysmal. It was less than a farm labourer's pay. So I thought, no, I'm not going to post it. But she did. Later, that the district engineer, old Bert Rickard, and Bob Stock turned up at the door. I said, oh, yeah, you applied for the job? Oh, yeah. And after a little sip or two of the last of the whiskey that I'd had from the boat, duty free, we got on rather splendid. And they said I got the job. Michael Stevens.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we have a picture of that between you?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you remember her?
Yeah.
She had a funnel.
Hang on, Peter.
Yes, our focusing muscles all deteriorate. Reason for it, the stability of the old lifeboats was very great indeed. They could go over to an angle of over 90 degrees and still come back. But after that, they go over and stay over, of course.
That's sideways, is it?
Yeah.
First leg.
Well, no, lots of people think of capsizing, you go. It's not necessarily so. You go head over heels backwards or forwards because of the steepness of the sea. A lot of Watsons have been lost like that.
Really?
Oh yes, well, they had a Russian took the photograph of the Fraserburgh lifeboat doing precisely that. She went over, killed all hands.
Really?
And come over barrel on the stern.
Yeah.